The Bible is a living word that reads us as we read it. It's a person, a voice that proves that time is not linear, as one sentence can confirm the past, guide the present, and declare the future. You are here. I am here. He is here. We are here. Right now, in the tomorrow of yesterday and in the yesterday of tomorrow, I thank you for joining today. So we're back. Thank you so much for joining once again. In our last episode, we talked about a unique custody battle that was dropped in front of King Solomon for him to try. There were two mothers, they were roommates, who had newborn sons around the same age. They went toe to toe because one mom pulled a switcheroo in the cover of the night and took the other mom's son, replacing him with her lifeless son. Both moms claimed that the living child was theirs. And in this whole dramatic case, Solomon devised a plan that allowed him to determine which of the two women was the mother, the actual mother, and which of the two women was the thief. We also talked about the parallels between the crooked mom and the agenda of the thief mentioned in John chapter 10. His agenda being to steal, kill, and destroy. So, after this big case, the people were astonished by how King Solomon served up justice, and they recognized that such wisdom could only come from the Lord. The word says that Solomon was given wisdom, very great insight, and a breadth of knowledge greater than the sand of the seashore. Now, there are a lot of people who are chasing the bag because they dream of riches. But with the wisdom, knowledge, and insight that God gave Solomon, he was able to implement systems, build alliances, and even attract wealth. So much wealth that Solomon made gold as common as stones in Jerusalem. Can you imagine that? Think about all the rocks you've ever kicked in your life and imagine that those were gold. That's how common gold was in his time. Not because he was chasing after it, but because what he had, what the Lord blessed him with, attracted it. Kings from all over the world, and at least one queen, the Queen of Sheba, heard about Solomon's reputation and they would travel just to listen to Solomon's wisdom. Whatever they asked, he had the answer for. And not only did he know how to govern people, he also knew about plant life, birds, reptiles, fish, animals, all manner of things. The Queen of Sheba even found herself overwhelmed by Solomon. She was taken aback by how Solomon and everything around him just radiated excellence. In addition to wisdom, wealth, and a great reputation, the Lord also blessed Solomon with peace on all sides. He had no beef or haters from other nations trying to stir up trouble. In fact, Solomon ruled over a wide span of kingdoms that paid him tributes. One day, Solomon sent word to an old friend, Hiram, who was the king of Tyre. He said something to the effect of, "What's good? Everything on my end is copacetic, no enemies, no disaster. But I need your help with a project I'm about to start. I'm going to build a temple for the name of the Lord my God, and I need some of that good wood from the cedars of Lebanon cut for me. I'm going to send a crew to work with your crew. Just name your price. You know I'm good for it." Now, I imagine that Hiram was beyond excited to take Solomon up on his offer. Geographically speaking, the land of Tyre was just not the best for agriculture. So Hiram agreed to help Solomon out in exchange for Solomon feeding his royal household, which seems like a very practical request. Hiram and his crew, along with Solomon and his extensive labor force of foreigners, it was a lot of them. Basically, the descendants of all of the people who decided that they were not going to leave the land when the Israelites took over. They were the labor force. So Solomon had a lot of foreigners who were his workers. Solomon and his crew, Hiram and his crew, they all worked diligently for 7 years to complete the temple of the Lord and all of its furnishings. I would have to do a whole episode with visuals to give you an idea of how breathtaking that I imagine the temple of the Lord was. Let me tell you this though, Solomon spared no expense when it came to its construction. The rooms were literally dripping in gold. Once the temple was complete, Solomon put the silver and gold and all of the furnishings that David had dedicated into the treasuries of the temple. He then gathered some of the old heads, the elders, heads of the tribes, the chiefs of all of the Israelite families, and called them together to bring the Ark of the Covenant from the city of David, along with the tabernacle and all of its furnishings that were in Gibeon. Now, though we don't know specifically what came of the tabernacle, we do know that the temple of the Lord became the new centralized place of worship. It was the appointed place for offerings to be presented, festivals to be observed, and for the Ark of the Covenant to be housed. Solomon and the people sacrificed more sheep and cattle than they could count, displaying their commitment to the Lord. And all of a sudden, in the midst of their offerings, their worship, their dedication, a dark cloud filled the temple. And the priests couldn't even work anymore. They couldn't do their priestly duties because of the weight of the cloud. The Lord's glory filled the temple. Solomon fell on his knees outside the temple at the altar, and he gave a long speech dedicating the temple to the Lord. Solomon went on to pray and ask that the Lord hear his prayers and the prayers of the people when they would pray towards the temple. And he also asked that the Lord forgive them when they sin against him, and that the Lord will have his eyes open to the pleas of the people. Later on, the Lord appeared to Solomon a second time, just as he appeared to him the first time in Gibeon. And we know from the last episode that the way that the Lord appeared to Solomon was in a dream. The Lord said to Solomon, I have heard your prayer and your petition. I have set this temple apart to be holy, this place you've built where my name will be honored forever. I will always watch over it, for it is dear to my heart. As for you, if you will follow me with integrity and godliness, as David your father did, obeying all my commands, decrees, and regulations, then I will establish the throne of your dynasty over Israel forever. For I have made this promise to your father David. One of your descendants will always sit on the throne of Israel. But if you or your descendants abandon me and disobey the commands and decrees I've given you, and if you serve and worship other gods, then I will uproot Israel from this land that I've given them. I'll reject this temple that I've made holy to honor my name, and I will make Israel an object of mockery and ridicule among the nations. And though this temple is impressive now, all who pass by will be appalled and will gasp in horror. They will ask, why did the Lord do such terrible things to this land and to this temple? And the answer will be because his people abandoned the Lord their God, who brought their ancestors out of Egypt, and they worshiped other gods instead and bowed down to them. That is why the Lord has brought all these disasters on them. Now, you would think that such a word, such a warning would have resonated with Solomon every day, all day. Solomon had a lot going for him, but he also had two problems. One, he got comfortable. Two, he loved him some women. And when we're not vigilant about guarding ourselves, even from our own desires, we get caught slipping. Solomon got caught slipping. A friend of mine and I have this thing lately, shout out to Inez Black, where we are constantly reminding ourselves and one another of 1 Corinthians 10:12, which says, if you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. Another translation says, take heed lest you fall. Solomon did a lot of things that appeared to be holy. This man presented countless sacrifices. He asked God to equip him so that he could govern the people. He built a temple unto the Lord that would go down in history, pun intended. But his heart started drifting despite all of the things that he had going for him and all of the things that he got right. Solomon loved women. More specifically, he loved foreign women. Now, I don't know if he just wasn't really feeling the Israelite women. I really don't know. But I do know that foreign wives equaled political and economical alliances with other nations. So adding to the Egyptian wife that Solomon already had, he also married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from the Hittites. And I'm not just talking about a few wives from these places. I'm talking about several hundred wives, 700 wives to be exact. You heard me right. 700 wives from royal birth. Now, if you're anything like me, you're asking the question, how, Solomon? But wait till I tell you this. Not only did this man have 700 wives, he also had 300 women that he could rendezvous with, but without the commitment of marriage. That was a major part of their job description. Be available to rendezvous. 300 of them. That is 1,001 women. Do you hear me? Now, I'm no doctor. Never mind. Let me stop there. So the Lord was very clear with the people. This has been a thing. The Lord has been clear with the people of Israel. Don't mess with these women. Back in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 3 through 4, he told the Israelites that marriage to foreigners was a no-no. Don't intermarry with these women because they're going to turn you away from worshiping me and you're going to worship other gods. Solomon knew this, but he insisted on loving who he wanted to love. And before you know it, his wives did exactly that. They turned his heart away from the Lord. As Solomon grew older, it says he not only turned his heart away from the Lord, he turned it toward worshiping other gods. From time to time, he would throw some crumbs to the Lord, but he refused to follow the Lord completely. It was no longer only God, it became God and, which is a huge danger because God himself is more than enough. God plus anything else is anything else too much. Solomon started building shrines for the gods of his wives. He literally was raising up sacred places for them to burn incense and offer sacrifices. Needless to say, the Lord was angry, and I'm talking big angry about Solomon's disloyalty and his blatant hard headedness. Solomon was warned, but he didn't listen. So the Lord spoke to him once more. Oh, so you king now and think you can have it your way. Yeah, since you've disobeyed me, I'm tearing the kingdom from you and giving it to one of your servants. Your pops was loyal to me, so for his sake, I'll spare you, wait till you die, and then I'll tear it from your son. I did promise David that one of his descendants will always sit on the throne of Israel. For that reason alone, I will not tear the entire kingdom away from your son. I'll leave him one tribe. I imagine that in that moment, Solomon was fully aware of the shift in the dynamic between him and the Lord. What once was no longer. The man that the Lord once called son found himself in the bed with strangers. As a result, his loyalty was snatched, kingdom divided, and a wedge was driven between Solomon and the Lord. And that division, that separation, it equates to death. The favored life that Solomon once had was destroyed, which is classic work of the thief. If you think back to last episode, custody battle. I'm just saying, think about it. The next thing we read is that the Lord himself raised up an Edomite man, Hadad, to be Solomon's adversary. I look forward to unpacking that more in our next episode if the Lord blesses me to record another. Thank you so much for your support and love. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, bye for now.